Welcome everybody to another slashing good episode of the Cinema Showdown. We are the Cinema Addicts. This week we got two slasher films for you to listen to. So we're going to find out which one is your favorite scary movie. Enjoy!
I met this 6-year-old child with this blank, pale, emotionless face and the blackest eyes, the devil's eyes. I spent 8 years trying to reach him, and then another 7 trying to keep him locked up because I realized that what was living behind that boy's eyes was purely and simply evil.
Jason!
I'm sorry. That's the wrong answer.
No, it's not. It was Jason.
Afraid not? No way.
Listen, it was Jason. I saw that movie 20 goddamn times.
Then you should know Jason's mother, Mrs. Voorhees, was the original killer. Jason didn't show up until the sequel. I'm afraid that was a wrong answer. Lucky for you, there's a bonus round. But poor Steve, I'm afraid he's out.
Right, and that is our setup for this is Cinema Showdown. So this week we have two great horror films, two great slasher films. Both are very much admired by horror films. And this week we have the 1978 John Carpenter chiller Halloween. And on the other corner we have the Wes Craven classic that revitalized horror in 1996, Scream. So we have Halloween, directed by John Carpenter and stars Donald Pleasence and Jamie Lee Curtis, and the Wes Craven Scream starring Neve Campbell, David Arquette, and Courtney Cox. So if you don't know, Halloween is a little horror film that takes place in Haddonfield, Illinois, which doesn't actually exist. And the story starts off in 1963 about a 6-year-old boy named Michael Myers who stabs his older sister to death on Halloween. And 15 years later, after being locked up in the mental ward, he escapes the mental institution and returns home to wreak havoc on Haddonfield. His psychiatrist, Dr. Loomis, who spent 8 years trying to reach him, and another 7 trying to keep him locked up. Or it might have been the other way around. Maybe it was 7 years trying to reach him, and another 8 keeping him locked up. But anyway, Dr. Loomis follows Michael to Haddonfield to hook up with the town sheriff to try to prevent the bloodshed from happening. Now, the story of Scream is about a high school student named Sidney Prescott who becomes the target of a mysterious killer known as Ghostface, who's targeting her friends around the 1-year anniversary of her mother's murder. It's a mystery kind of film, guessing who the killer is, and kind of reminds you of like the original Friday the 13th a little bit as far as trying to guess who the killer is. And I always kind of compare it to the old Scooby-Doo cartoons Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? You know, every episode you watched, you knew one of the characters they introduced in the episode would turn out to be the person behind the mask, and it was always kind of fun to guess who exactly it was. It's the same way with these Scream films. You know, every time one of the films come out, you knew you was going to have fun trying to guess who it was. So, the Halloween film also stars Nancy Loomis, PJ Soles, and Charles Cyphers. And on Rotten Tomatoes, Halloween has a 92%. On Internet Movie Database, it has a 7.9. Scream also stars Skeet Ulrich, Matthew Lillard, and Rose McGowan, Jamie Kennedy, and Drew Barrymore in that famous opening scene. Scream on Rotten Tomatoes has a 78%, and on Internet Movie Database it has a 7.2. So Halloween has the higher ratings on Rotten Tomatoes and on Internet Movie Database, although they are a little bit closer in their ratings on Internet Movie Database, as far as Halloween has a 7.9 to Scream 7.2. I feel like both of those are pretty much too low, but we will get into that later. And of course, on Box Office Robbies, I gotta mention the box office. Halloween actually had the record for like the most profitable film for a long time. Its budget was only at $300,000, and it grossed $47 million in 1978, which is a lot when you adjust the inflation. Scream, on the other hand, in '96 was also a big box office success. Budget at $15 million, and it grossed $103 million just here in the States alone. Halloween went on to spawn 7 sequels, a remake, and a sequel to that remake. Scream went on to spawn 3 more sequels and a TV show currently airing on MTV. So before we get into breaking down these movies and the categories, I like to mention these are 2 of my favorite films of all time, not just in the horror genre. So I like to point out a few little trivial type facts here, a few things that I find interesting about these films. Halloween was inspired by Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho. If you pay attention to some of the characters' names, they very similar to some of the characters in Psycho. John Carpenter was highly inspired by that. Sam Loomis, Marion Crane. There's some interesting names there if you pay attention to that. Halloween was selected for preservation by the National Film Registry, so that's a big honor there. Not too many films has been honored by that. The Michael Myers mask, a lot of people knows this, but John Carpenter them took a Captain Kirk mask, and he basically had them paint it white, stretch out the eyes. They wanted like this kind of pale, blank look of a face. So it's kind of interesting that they took a William Shatner Captain Kirk mask and turned it into the Michael Myers mask that we all know today. Another interesting fact about when they were filming Halloween is they filmed it in the springtime. I believe it was April. So the leaves, and the trees, all looked like, the springtime. And I think if you actually watch it, you might even see like a couple of flowers that's currently blooming. But John Carpenter and his crew made their own fall leaves and kind of scattered them around and had them blow them around, and then they had to constantly keep regathering them all up, which had to be not too much fun, and spreading them around in different other shots and scenes. Like I said, a lot of characters, a couple characters was named off of Psycho, and the other interesting fact is that John Carpenter ended up casting Jamie Lee Curtis in the starring role, and her mom, Janet Leigh, played Marion Crane in the original Psycho. Couple scream queens there for you. John Carpenter himself composed the music score, which is interesting because he claimed himself that he doesn't know how to read or write a single note of music, but he knows how to play, and he composed the Halloween theme himself. Now, a few interesting things about Scream. Scream inspired by a couple great slasher films. One of them it's going up against, it was inspired by Halloween, which when you watch it you'll see some of Halloween's scenes in the film, mostly towards the end. And it was also inspired by Psycho too. So I always kind of connected Psycho to Halloween to Scream. And what's also interesting is those three films was all made 18 years apart from one another. One thing that Scream was credited for was revitalizing the horror genre in 1996. After many years of terrible horror films throughout the 90s, most of them going straight to video, the horror genre was pretty much all but dead until Scream in 96 really gave it a shot in the arm that it needed and kind of refreshed the genre. A lot of horror films was made right after Scream just because they saw the success Scream had. Bride of Chucky being one of them. Write that down. And Kevin Wilson, the writer of Scream, that wrote the script, got the idea for Scream after watching a news story about the Gainesville Ripper, who was connected to several murders. I find that interesting that he was watching the news, saw this story that broke, and saw the details and how horrifying it was, and got the idea to write the story and the script for which would eventually be titled Scream. And another interesting fact about Scream is that it was originally titled Scary Movie, and most of the cast, all the way up till, I think actually the film was finished filming and was done, thought it was going to be called Scary Movie, and it was changed to Scream at the last minute, which I think was a very smart idea. Another interesting fact about Scream was Drew Barrymore was originally casted to star in Scream as Sidney Prescott to be the star, but due to she was filming on another set and she really liked the opening scene of the character Casey and how that scene went, and they thought it was a good idea to, everybody thought Drew Barrymore was the star of this film, and you get there to see it, and 10 minutes in, and spoiler alert, she's butchered. Gutted. So, those are some interesting facts. And the last one here that I had written down was that director Wes Craven himself has a little tiny cameo in it as Freddy the janitor. It's interesting because when you see him in it, he's actually dressed up as Freddy with the whole sweater, hat. So it's kind of a little throwback there to his own classic horror film, Nightmare on Elm Street there. I always kind of find that scene funny when I see it. One of my favorite scenes from both of these films, and Halloween, I have to go with the scene where Laurie backs into the hallway after seeing her friends dead. And she starts to back into the hallway slowly, terrified as can be. And in behind her, in one of the other doorways, it's pitch dark. And she backs up to almost like the corner, and slowly behind her, Michael Myers' mask appears out of the darkness. And the music score and everything just builds just right. And when you see his mask just slowly fade in, it's one of the creepiest scenes I've seen in a horror film. And then, of course, he stabs her in the shoulder. She falls over the staircase. That is one of my favorite scenes right there. As far as the Scream film goes, my favorite scene, and probably most people's for this Scream movie, was the opening scene with Drew Barrymore. What's your favorite horror movie, and want to play a game. Drew Barrymore's character Casey was like, "It's Jason, it's Jason." And she was so convinced that it was. It's definitely my favorite scene of the first Scream, even though I really love the rest of the movie too. So, we are going to get into breaking these films down in categories here. And by the way, you're not going to find me take off anything from these two films. I tried and tried.
Try as you do. I, on the other hand, did find some places to take points off from. So I'm going to start with the story. So I'm going to talk about Scream. I felt that this has a very, very original story to it. It kind of shows you what can happen if you watch one too many movies, in which this case you have a group of young teenagers who are obsessed with horror movies. They even know the different rules to survive a horror movie, and taking that rules, how all these killers get caught in the end, they take this information and they start murdering their friends, which I thought was a very original story to it. And I really liked the whole who's the killer, because anybody can be the killer. If you don't watch the end of the movie, even Sydney could be the killer for all we know. But also, Phil, this could happen in real life. Like I said earlier, I think this movie probably kind of set like the whole trend that what we're watching or what video games we're playing is kind of affecting the youth out there. That because they're getting desensitized to this kind of stuff, they're more willing to go out there and commit these heinous crimes. Which I think is really cool that this movie kind of delves into that kind of stuff. The movies are responsible for, deaths. I know there's that one movie out there called Manhunt where you go around and stalk people in the shadows and find different ways to kill them. And some kid actually went and tried to kill his friend by using one of the techniques, you can say. So I really could not take off any points for that. But on the other hand, when it comes to Halloween, I know Robbie's going to hate this so much. But I do have quite a bit of things to say about Halloween. Some issues I have with the movie. First off, I gotta say this movie's like really, really dated. I feel like the movie does not hold up to today at all. When you look at Scream holds up. The deaths are good, the mystery's good, the story's good. With Halloween, the movie is too damn simple. You know nothing about Michael Myers really, besides he kills his sister. You don't know why. You don't know why he's coming back to kill other people. Why is he killing young babysitters? That makes no sense. Makes no sense at all. Okay, going with story here. I wrote down some things. The title makes no sense whatsoever. This doesn't even feel like Halloween. Even in the movie, like, this takes place on the 30th. Doesn't even take place on Halloween. This should be like the day before Halloween. And also, it looks like it's more like Thanksgiving time. So this movie really should be called Thanksgiving, in my opinion. But whatever. Another big issue I had with this movie is that it's October. Why is there a bunch of green leaves up in the tree? It looks more like springtime. Even though I just said that it looks like Thanksgiving. That's just because all the brown stuff they have all over the ground that they called leaves that they painted. Yeah, you can go and paint all the leaves you want, but it just doesn't work, I feel like. That's all I can say about that. Okay, there's a scene where Michael Myers chokes a lady in the back of a car. This is not realistic at all. Any person that's getting into a car, especially the car this woman's at, I believe she was in a garage, why wouldn't you look through your back mirror? When I back up, I look over my shoulder or I look at the mirror. You could see some guy with a freaking white mask in the dark. White masks are very noticeable in the dark. I'm sorry. But she should have been able to look and see that this guy is sitting in the back seat coming at her. And also, I don't know how strong Michael Myers is, but it's kind of weird that he's able to grab her with one hand and basically kill her with that. I don't know. And the way she dies with her face all mushed up against the window is just really, really silly. Also, Michael Myers is supposed to be 21 in this movie. He looks like he's 41. The age doesn't match up with him at all, it seems like. What else here? The mask. I didn't really think the mask was very scary. I know this is not too much of a story, but the mask is part of the story. Just go along with me here. From what Robbie has said before, they took a Captain Kirk mask and painted it white. I just think this looks really silly. Looks nothing like Captain Kirk. If anything, it looks like, I don't know. It doesn't look scary at all. I feel like they could have done a little bit better job. Instead of like, let's go to the haunted Halloween store and just pick a mask and just put paint on it. I know they were working on a lower budget, but jeez. At least come up with like some like demon mask or something. When I think about Halloween, I don't think about James T. Kirk and the Enterprise. Just saying. I guess the makers of this, John Carpenter, did not really care for Star Wars. He's a Trekkie, apparently. Also, another big problem I felt this movie had was, why does no one ever see him standing across the street? He's very noticeable. He's standing out in the middle of nowhere, and even when he's kind of hiding, he's like kind of peeking outside of a tree. I would notice that. And also, why does Dr. Loomis never catch up with him? There's this one scene where he's just standing there on the corner and he freaking drives by with the big freaking seal from his office on there. If you're looking for a guy, why aren't you looking all around you instead of just looking forward? I don't know. Also, why wouldn't Dr. Loomis go towards Jamie Lee Curtis and try to protect her or set up a trap for, him of some sort? He has his personnel files. Why doesn't he see that she is his brother? I know she's adopted, but if someone's going out to kill people in his old neighborhood, that should be a case to where he should be able to get those files and see that she is related to him, because he's possibly going to come back and try to kill her. He's already killed one of their siblings. Why, wouldn't he come back to kill her? I don't know. What else do we got here? And I don't know. Palm trees are actually seen in this film. Again, this is set in Illinois or Indiana, one of the two, not California or Florida. I felt like that was a big, major mistake. Let's see here. Oh, there's just one scene. I'm probably going to talk about this with the acting, but there's a scene where Jamie Lee Curtis loses her keys and cannot get in the house. When she left the house, the keys were in her hand. And when she gets to the door to get back into that house she's babysitting, they're all of a sudden gone. And she's in there, the keys, oh, I can't find the keys. You got a guy right behind you that's walking to come murder you. Why are you even fooling with the keys? Go run somewhere else. Go knock on another neighbor's door. You don't have to knock on the kid's door that, they're asleep. So, that's my little gripes about that. Oh, one more thing. How does Michael Myers know that she's in the closet at the end? There's no way he would have known she's in there. She wasn't really making any sounds. I mean, she was breathing a little bit, but, did he smell her in there? I don't know. But overall, I know Robbie's going to hate me for this, but I took 0.5 off for this. I know he's probably going to take like a big goose egg off, but I don't know. Looking back, after seeing all the other horror movies I have seen, this movie just doesn't hold up at all. It's just like Friday the 13th. I think that movie is pointless. You got people just standing there screaming their heads off up until they get stabbed with a machete. These people don't even try to run. And also, why the hell would you run upstairs? They kind of poke fun at this in Scream, which is another great thing about Scream. They kind of show you the flaws with other movies. They're not really trying to poke fun at other movies. They're kind of showing you there's a certain pattern to all these other movies out there. And if you follow these patterns, if someone tries to kill you, you have more odds to likely survive if you follow these certain things. But why would you run upstairs if you're running from someone? And also, how does Michael Myers cut off the power? Why doesn't the phone work? When I lose power at my house, the landline still works. That's the purpose of that. So, I'm going to go ahead and give this over to Robbie, and we'll see what he has to say.
I love the story of Halloween and Scream. Both films feel original and fresh, even to this day rewatching them. So I could not take off 0 for either film. The main acting with Halloween, it's Donald Pleasance and Jamie Lee Curtis. I thought they both do an excellent job, especially towards the end when Jamie Lee Curtis first encounters Michael, and then all the way running across the street, all the way up to the closet scene, to the struggle of him trying to choke her to death. She did an amazing job acting out really terrified. Donald Pleasance is iconic in it. I couldn't take off anything for main acting. For Scream, to me, they always kind of build Neve Campbell is kind of the star, but I kind of consider it to be her, David Arquette, and Courtney Cox. And I think all three of these do a phenomenal job. And what's amazing is that, David Arquette and Courtney Cox really aren't great actors, but they do a great job in this film, so I cannot take off anything for main acting.
For Halloween and Scream for main acting, I feel like Scream's more of an ensemble cast with the supporting actor-wise, but I feel like Neve Campbell is the main actor or actress for Scream. And for Halloween, I think Jamie Lee Curtis is the main actress, and Donald Pleasance and everyone else is supporting. The reason why I think Donald Pleasance is not the main actor is just for the fact that Jamie Lee Curtis has more screen time. It's just like when you watch Silence of the Lambs, is the thing you remember the most from that movie is Hannibal Lecter, but he is a supporting actor. He's not the main actor, which going into the film that you're going to be thinking that Hannibal Lecter is the main person. So I'm going to go ahead and start with Scream, because I like Scream more. So, with main acting, I gave this 0.25 off. Now, Neve Campbell, she did a great job. It's not like the best thing I've ever seen. It is great. It is up there with one of the best performances with like horror-wise, just because they don't do like the whole stupid, they're going to get me. She actually is able to think for herself, and she even says that earlier in the film, like, what am I, some big boob bimbo that's going to run upstairs and blah blah blah. I mean, she actually has a brain, which is rare in horror movies, because usually the female is some stupid blonde chick that gets herself killed. But different movies. Also thought she did a really good job when she's kind of like opening up to her boyfriend. Because in the movie, there's this whole big deal where her mom just died a year ago, and she's not willing to let anybody in, and she does a good job showing this. And then at the end, with everything happening to her, she's like, screw it, we're going to do it. And then her boyfriend ends up trying to kill her. I feel like as the actress, she did a good job at showcasing like the confusion and everything else that was involved with that. But overall, she did a really good job, I feel like, for the movie. Now, Jamie Lee Curtis, I took off a little bit more points for this. I think that the casting was not very good with her, because usually in horror movies, especially back in the 70s and 80s, they always cast like really, attractive people. And I'm going with, for this time, Jamie Lee Curtis as like a teenager, or any time, honestly, she's not very attractive. She kind of looks like a man, which, there are rumors going around that she's a hermaphrodite, that she was born with both parts, and that's why her name is Jamie Lee, but that's just rumors going around. I'm not going to say anything about that. I know those people have a hard time with deciding what they want to be, but I feel like Jamie Lee Curtis does not fit the role very well. They probably should have went with, a little bit of a better actress, someone that's actually done some other things. There was actually a interview that she did, and she thought she was going to get fired the first day because she felt like her performance was that bad. And if you think your performance is that bad, there's probably a reason why you think that. It's probably because your performance was not that great. I don't know. I always kind of felt like Jamie Lee Curtis was kind of a boring person, acting wise. I haven't really seen too many movies where it kind of grabs me, and I don't know. Only movie I kind of like with her in it is True Lies, and I like the movie, but everything else but her. I always thought she was kind of annoying in that movie. Yeah. What else do we got here? Other main actor, Michael Myers, the killer. Why can't we hear anything he says? I mean, he's very audible in the movie. You can't really make out anything he says. I mean, it kind of just seems like he's just standing there the entire time, which I guess if that was what they were going for, that's cool, but I don't know. He had very wooden acting, and for the most part, he just does not come off as scary. So, going to supporting acting, I know Robbie thinks, in his opinion, that Courtney Cox and David Arquette is also main acting, but I always felt that they were supporting acting growing up. I took 0.25 off for this. It's not because of Courtney Cox and David Arquette. I thought they did great. It's more or less from Rose McGowan. She was good. She was more like the comic relief, I felt like that scene after she punches out Gale Weathers. Rose McGowan's at home with Neve Campbell, and she's like, "Boom, got her, psycho bitch, boom." I thought that was pretty funny, but I didn't think that was like the best acting. It was good acting, but I took off a little bit for that. I also really like the part where she's in the garage and Ghostface is there, and she thinks it's just one of her friends playing a stupid prank, and she's doing the whole like, "Do you want to play psycho killer?" And Ghostface is just nodding his head yes, and then she stupidly tries to get through the cat door in the garage and then kills herself, which I always kind of had an issue with that. I don't think that the garage door would open up with that much weight holding it down. I know this is back in the 90s, but they must have had some sort of technology back then at least to kind of sense that there's something hanging on the door. And also, would the motor be strong enough to bring her up that far? I don't know. That's just nitpicking there, but I thought Courtney Cox showed a good job showcasing that her character is willing to go the extra step to get the story that she needs, even if it's going to piss off everyone, which it ends up doing. David Arquette, I thought he did a good job. He kind of played like the stupid cop. He's 25 years old. He was 24 last year. That was a stupid joke they made. The big people I thought were really good was Skeet Ulrich and Matthew Lillard. There's just one good scene at the end where they had revealed themselves as killers, and they sit there stabbing each other, and I always laugh when Matthew Lillard's like, "You went too deep, I'm getting woozy here." And then Neve Campbell escapes, and Matthew Lillard's sitting there like kind of leaning over on the table because he's bleeding out and he's getting really woozy. And Skeet Ulrich gets pissed off and throws the phone, whacks him in the head, and says, "You hit me in the head, you dick." I guess that part was not actually scripted. Skeet Ulrich actually accidentally hit him in the head with the phone. He was supposed to like throw it next to him. And with Matthew Lillard's reaction to this, they actually decided to keep the scene, which I thought was pretty funny. And shows you how good Matthew Lillard's able to act on the spot. I really like that part. I thought that was great. And also when Neve Campbell says that she calls the cops and stuff, and Matthew Lillard's sitting there saying like, "Oh man, my parents are going to find out. They're going to kill me." I think those were some of like the best scenes of the movie, for me at least, because they kind of have me laughing. I know this is a serious movie, but usually going to horror movies, I always think that stuff that they do is funny. But now with supporting acting with Halloweener, I think the guy playing Dr. Lubis had a very stale acting. He didn't really show very much range, I think, at least in my opinion. I know Robbie's like, Donald Pleasant, he's so pleasant. I just love him so much. Which, is cool and all. We all have our opinions. This is just mine. I wasn't actually convinced that Dr. Lubis was a real psychiatrist, because why on earth would you be going on a hunt for this adolescent or this young man? I guess he's 21, the 41-year-old. Why would he be going on a hunt for her? Why wouldn't he contact the authorities or something? Why is he the only person that sees Michael Myers as this evil being? I know he's evil, but why? Just because you saw him stare at a wall. There's a lot of people that stare at walls. Like, I work in a nursing home, and there are people that stare at walls. I don't think that they are going to get up and start killing people. I know they're elderly people, but still. They're not. Just because you have dead eyes doesn't mean you're a serial killer, and I don't know. Also, if this movie was made today, he'd be violating the hell out of HIPAA. I'm just putting that out there. And I still just don't see why he thinks that Michael Myers is pure evil. The evilest thing of all. He's what we should watch out for. But, Robbie, why don't you go ahead and tell me what you think about the supporting actors. I know you think they're a little bit different, but go ahead and let's see what yours are.
For supporting acting, for Halloween, it would be pretty much the sheriff and Laurie Strode's two friends. So it's pretty much Nancy Loomis, PJ Soles, and Charles Cyphers. Some might think, watching it back now, that Nancy Loomis and PJ Soles, who plays Laurie Strode's two friends in it, Annie and Linda, you might kind of watch it back now and think that it's cheesy, but back in '78, I don't think it was cheesy. And Deborah Hill, who helped write Halloween with John Carpenter and had a big influence on this film, wrote all the dialogue for the female characters in this movie. And I think for that time she pretty much nailed what teenagers talked about and how they acted and dressed and all that. So I couldn't take off anything for supporting acting. I thought they did a great job. For Scream, the supporting actors would be Skeet Ulrich, Matthew Lillard, Rose McGowan, Jamie Kennedy, and you can even throw Drew Barrymore in there, even though she's only in the opening scene. But it's such an iconic scene. You got to kind of talk about how great she was in that beginning scene. And then Skeet Ulrich and Matthew Lillard was iconic at the end of the film, being revealed as the killers. Rose McGowan did a great job. Jamie Kennedy's kind of the humor in the film. He's amazing in it. So I couldn't take off anything for the supporting acting. Now for the special effects. John Carpenter really didn't have much blood and gore in the original Halloween. It was kind of one of those films where what we don't show you can be more scary than showing you a lot of blood and a lot of gore. I mean, it was just a terrifying, chilling horror film, really well put together. And the special effects they did use in it with a low-budget film was amazing. I can't take anything away from special effects. And the same goes with Scream. There was a couple gore scenes in it, mainly the one in the beginning, where the one guy's intestines was ripped out. It's a quick scene, but what you do see, it looks great. All the scenes with the stabbing, the blood, all the special effects in Scream are really great too, so I couldn't take away anything for special effects.
Okie dokie, so for me, the special effects, I thought the special effects in Scream were done very well. I always remember that opening scene with Drew Barrymore and her boyfriend Steve. I always remember the first time I watched it, how I was like really grossed out when Ghostface goes and slashes Steve across the stomach and all of his intestines starts falling out. Now when I watch that today, I mean, that doesn't have the same effect, but still, I always remember going back and remembering what that looked like for me. And I always thought that was really, really good. And overall, anytime any of the characters get hit or bashed, it feels like or looks like that's what someone would look like when they actually do get injured like they do in the movie. I also thought it was really funny how Ski Oric put corn syrup on himself that's been dyed with red to make it look like he gets stabbed by Ghostface when after he bangs Sydney. I thought that was pretty funny. And another big thing I thought was really cool with this movie is that in the movie they use voice changers, but in actuality they had a voice actor on the phone with the actors and actresses when they're getting called by Ghostface. That way, the Ghostface can actually play off of their reactions, and they can play off of his reactions. Also, another cool thing is that none of the people knew who the person on the other side was. So it's kind of like they had that mystery effect to help their acting out, which I thought was really cool. I really did not take any points off for special effects. I know it's not the best special effects, but for like 96 or whenever this movie came out, I thought it was great for the time. That was really good. Okay, so now going to the special effects for Halloween. I took off quite a bit for this. I'll tell you guys how much I took off. Well, I'll just go ahead and say I took off 0.75. I thought the special effects in this movie were pretty bad. There's this one part where Jamie Lee Curtis gets sliced on her shoulder. One thing I didn't like about that was it looks like she just has like some ketchup on her shoulder. Like she was eating a hot dog and squirted herself on the shoulder, and it's just a line there. If you're cut there on your shoulder, the blood around your cut shirt or the area around your cut shirt would have blood on it. It was very much clean. You would at least have like some blood lines going dripping down the side of your arm or something, unless it was just like a paper cut. I don't know. Can you paper cut someone with a kitchen knife? I don't think so. And also, I didn't really care for the kitchen knife too much. I thought that was kind of like a poor murder weapon. Like, why don't they use like a machete or some kind of hatchet or something? Something menacing. Like, it's like he broke into one of the houses and it's like, I'm going to use this kitchen knife. I'm going to steal it. So he's a thief and a murderer. So, and also, another big question is this is America. Most households owns a weapon of some sorts. Why does not one of them go to one of the safes or go underneath the mattress of the parents' house, or not that house, but in their bedroom or whatever, take out a gun and shoot him? Guns are accessible. I'm sorry, but I just feel like if this was truly depicting America, which, you know, is set in Illinois, Indiana, one of the two, I feel like that one of them should have thought about, well, let me see if I can find a gun. Or at least try to find some kind of weapon to defend yourself with. I mean, come on, people. And another thing I didn't really like was when she falls downstairs. I thought that was done very badly too. And there just wasn't really a lot of gore in this movie. All the death scenes were done really badly. One of the big scenes I just can't stand is in the beginning when you look through the little peepholes, which I thought was, you know, an okay thing to do. And he's sitting there stabbing his sister, and she's just like, you got me. And it feels like they just went outside, saw a woman walk by and be like, hey, you want to be in my movie? And she's like, sure. All right, we'll give you $100 to sit there and comb your hair. And then this little boy's going to come up to you and act like he's stabbing you and just go, Like, I don't know, that's like the worst acting I've seen. Even other movies that happened in the 70s, I feel like did a better job at death scenes. I already talked about the one scene where the girl dies in the car. That was done, oh god. Just had a little bad taste in my mouth from that. Ugh. Okay, so moving on to score. I thought that the score was very good in Scream. It's something I can remember, something that sticks with you. We played it for you at the beginning. Usually, if I can hum it, it gets 0 point off, and I feel like that's a score I can hum. So, and also I thought they had good other songs to add into the whole movie. Like when school gets canceled and they just start playing "School's Out for Summer." I thought it was pretty cool. Now with Halloween, I took 0.5 off. I know this is like an iconic theme, but it's too repetitive. I feel like I could make the same notes if I found a piano and just started hitting random keys. Because I'm thinking that's what John Carpenter did. Is just pulled out a piano and was like, I'm going to hit this key and this key. Oh, that kind of sounds like it might be okay. I don't know. I heard that John Carpenter was the one that actually came up with the theme song for this. Or the score or whatever for this movie. I feel like maybe they should have went with a professional, because you can definitely tell this was not done by a professional. It was done by an amateur, but that's neither here or there. So, Robbie, let's see what you have to say.
Now on to the cinema score, which I played you both of these films' cinema score in the beginning. And what's great about these two films' soundtracks and scores is that there's actually other scores that I could have played you besides those main two there. There's a couple other ones for both films that's really amazing. They both got a couple great songs in it. You know, with Halloween, you got "Don't Fear the Reaper." Nah, we need more cowbell. So it's got both of these films. I mean, who can't hum the Halloween theme song, and even the Scream one? But I mean, if I was to pick between the two, I'd have to go with the Halloween being a little better here in the score section. But I still can't take away nothing from Scream's score. To me, there's no way. Every horror soundtrack you go out and buy, if you was to go out right now and look for a Halloween theme soundtrack with like horror films on there, you know, you're going to go down the list and you're going to have Halloween on there, Friday the 13th, The Exorcist, many other films like Poltergeist. But Scream, every time I've looked at one, Scream soundtrack is on there. It's a very, Psycho's soundtrack. It's very memorable soundtracks. So I couldn't take away nothing for score for either one of these films.
Alright, so entertainment value for me. I feel that Scream is very entertaining. It has you going from start to beginning. And it's very rare with a movie, because usually some movies have kind of slow parts. This movie is like nonstop from beginning to end, entertainment-wise. You're always constantly trying to figure out who the killer is, which I really like that. So I took off a big goose egg for this one, because I can't really find anything wrong with the entertainment-wise. And rewatchability also with this one. I usually watch this movie once a year. I've watched this movie 100 times since I've seen it. I didn't see these movies first until I was like 15, 16, and I actually saw the second movie first. And usually when you see the second movie first and you go back and watch the first one, usually you don't really think the first one's that great, but I actually thought that this movie was better. The same thing happened to me with like Terminator. I saw T2 first and then went back to watch Terminator 1, and I still think T2 is the better film, but anyone will tell you that. Now, entertainment-wise with Halloween, I probably gonna get a lot of heat for this one, but I took off a full point for that one. I thought this movie was like so boring. It's so slow, and it takes forever for anything to happen. Like the first death doesn't even like happen until like 45 minutes into the film. This is so boring. It's hard to get through it. It's really slow. It reminds me of The Shining and just how drawn out it is. And rewatchability, I've seen this movie one time, and I don't know. I probably won't watch this movie again. I actually thought that the remake that Rob Zombie did was a lot better. One good thing I liked about the remake was that you got more backstory with Michael Myers. You actually got to see why he did what he did. And also, another good thing I liked about the remake is that you had Malcolm McDonald playing Dr. Lubis. And I think he did a better job than Donald Pleasant did. And another thing that he has going for him that Donald Pleasant does not have is Malcolm McDonald, I think that's what his name is, has that iconic voice. I wish they would have got him for this movie. It would have made it a lot better. But all in all, out of both films, my final score for both movies, I gave Scream a 9.5. I know you guys are probably sitting there thinking like, well, that's kind of high for movies that he rates. But when you look at the horror genre, this movie right here is my favorite horror movie. Has been since forever. This series was actually the first one I've ever watched, which I think that probably adds to it a little bit, has a little nostalgia effect, which I feel like everyone that probably is going to vote for Halloween probably is voting just based on the nostalgia effect of it. So, with that being said, my final score for Halloween is a 5. 5 out of 10. I just think this movie is really boring. It's very outdated. It takes forever for anything to go on. The characters are stupid. I don't know if it's just the characters are stupid or it's just the actors just did not do a good job doing it. Because these are some idiot teenagers that got killed. And another thing I didn't say before is, how does Michael Myers get into that house at the end with Laurie when you don't hear any doors open or anything, and he was just in front of the house? This guy is not a sprint runner. Like, he walks like freaking Frankenstein. Maybe that's what they're going for. Maybe he's based off Frankenstein. I don't know. But at the end of the day, my score for Halloween is a 5. So, Robbie, why don't you go ahead? And Brian wasn't with us this time, so we're going to play his whole clip here after Robbie goes. So, Robbie, go ahead and do your thing.
Entertainment value. Both of these films are highly entertaining. I mean, in the horror category, they're at a 10. These films are rewatchable. It doesn't have to be October. It doesn't have to be around Halloween time. I can rewatch these films any time of the year and twice on every day of the month of October. Very entertaining films, very rewatchable. I've probably watched both of them 1,000 times apiece. I cannot take away any points from the entertainment value and rewatchability categories. So, if you've been counting, you've noticed that I have not deducted any points from either one of these films, because I am obsessed crazy about both of them, and I give both of these horror films, classics, a 10 apiece. They both get 10 stars. So we have a tie. But I'm going to go with a tiebreaker. And before I reveal who the winner is, I want to say what I really like about both these films. What's great about Halloween is all the scares, and they really build up to what really scares you in the dark. It's like they really sit and thought about, some of the scariest things, and they're so realistic about it. Like, the scene where Michael's chasing Laurie Strode across the street, and she runs up to her door trying to get her keys out of her pocket. If you think about it realistically, if some maniac was chasing you, you would probably have a hard time getting the keys out of your pocket, and you would probably have a hard time trying to find the exact key you need to get in the door, because you'd be in such a panic and scared to death, you probably wouldn't be able to find the right key. The film doesn't have much gore and rarely any blood in it, but it's suspenseful, and it's thrilling, and it's terrifying, And it also celebrates the best time of the year, Halloween. Every year, when Halloween comes, you're going to turn the TV on and they're going to be playing the marathon of all the Halloween films. This movie celebrates Halloween to its fullest, and it's just an amazing film with an amazing soundtrack that once you hear the music, it catches you. So with Scream, what I love about this film, it's also scary and thrilling, but it's also clever and witty. You know, this film kind of pokes fun about horror cliches, but at the same time, it's still a serious horror film in itself. You know, and you get to guess who the killer is the whole movie, waiting for that big epic climax that, you know, it's going to blow your mind like, oh my god, I can't believe this person was a killer, and you can't wait for the motive and the reason why they're doing this to poor Sidney Prescott. Yeah, it's just a great horror film, great, amazing score. It honors Halloween, it honors Psycho, it honors the horror genre, but at the same time poking fun at it. But at the same time, it's a serious horror film and a great horror film. To me, this is what the Cabin in the Woods film tried to do, but poorly failed at. To me, this is easily the best horror film in the last 25 to 30 years. I can't think of a single horror film of this century that comes close to Scream. So, to break this tiebreaker, I am going to pick the film that came out first and the film that just honors this time of the year. And when it's October, the first thing that comes to my mind is watching John Carpenter's Halloween. So my winner for Cinema Showdown is Halloween. John Carpenter, baby. This is Box Office Robbie. I'm out.
Alright, like I said before, he wasn't with us, but you asked for him, you got him. Here's Brian.
Okay, so this week's showdown is two really great horror classics here. You have Wes Craven's Scream versus John Carpenter's Halloween. This is another good showdown that is really hard for me, because both of these movies, I've went down each category from main actor, supporting actor, to special effects, score, rewatchability, entertainment, you name it, all those categories. And I'm really trying to nitpick and trying to really at least take off a 0.25 off of one of these categories. But I cannot, you know, and I can't help it to give movies perfect scores, but when I think they really highly deserve it, they deserve a perfect score. And both of these movies, Halloween and Scream, to me are both perfect 10s. These are two movies that I have watched probably 1,000 to 2 million times growing up. Halloween, I watched that movie probably when I was like 2 years old, and ever since I was 2 years old, it's probably 1 million times that I watched Halloween. And same with Scream. I remember back when I seen Scream for the very first time in the theaters. Instantly, classic, hooked. These two movies are great. Love them to death. So both movies get a perfect 10. So now the winner-wise, I'm going to have to go with Halloween, just because you cannot mess with Michael Myers. This icon is this, to me, Michael Myers and like Freddy and Jason, all of them, to me, there are modern day werewolf, Frankenstein, Dracula. There are modern day monsters. So, and to me, Michael Myers is pretty much like Dracula to me. Michael Myers is the king. He's the one who started all these movies. Back in 1978, this movie was so freaking huge and so big. To me, I think if John Carpenter never made Halloween in 1978, we might not have some of these other movies, like Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street. I almost bet money on it that Jason and Freddy, those ideals came off of Halloween. Because you didn't get actually Jason Voorhees until part 3. The first one came out in 1980, which the first two, Jason wasn't Jason Voorhees yet. Jason didn't turn Jason until part 3, 3D. That wasn't later on into the 80s. So, they seen the success of what Halloween did. So, they knew that this was going to be huge. So, if it wasn't for Michael Myers, you wouldn't have Scream. I'm just telling you right now. Michael Myers' Halloween has laid the foundation down for all these other horror movies like that, all these slasher movies. So to me, Halloween is the winner overall. They both get a 10, but the winner is Halloween. So you cannot touch that movie. That movie is like treasure. Everything from the storyline to the visuals. I mean, this movie was filmed in April, which I kind of forgot or didn't know about until me and Zach was doing information. I kind of forgot that this movie was filmed in April, and they used their own leaves, and they painted them and had them blowing outside when it showed Jamie Lee Curtis and all that. So a lot of that stuff is because back then when I was a kid growing up watching Halloween, that never came across to me like this movie wasn't filmed during the fall time. Because to me, they do a great job. And Zach jokes around saying that some of the trees are green. Well, if you look around here, drive around, right now it's middle, getting towards a little bit to the end of October. I see a lot of trees that are green still. Not every tree has turned to yellow and red and orange and all that stuff. And a lot of these trees still around here are still green. So, and again though, if you watch the movie, they do a great job. All leaves are on the ground. The wind's blowing. They make you really believe that this movie is being filmed during October Halloween time. So, to me, I think they did a great job. Michael Myers, it's awesome that they took a Captain Kirk, William Shatner mask from Star Trek and came up with the idea of how to make Michael Myers' mask the way it is. I think that was cool as heck how they did that. To me, Michael Myers, the way he looks is just haunting. I mean, I guarantee it. If Michael Myers was real life, you're in your house in the middle of the night and it's dark, and this crazy ass tall figure in a mechanic suit wearing a white mask with a big giant kitchen knife, it's gonna scare the hell out of your ass. You're gonna be screaming in terror. So. Yeah, to me, I love Scream. I love the storyline. They kind of give a little nod to Halloween in it. They're watching Halloween towards the end of the movie. So again, even the movie Scream knows that Halloween is the freaking king. Don't mess with Halloween. But I love Scream. David Arquette, Courtney Cox in it, Neve Campbell. They're the leading star. They're supporting actors. They all do great in Scream. I mean, a lot of people kind of say Scream is kind of a comedy. I don't see how. You watch the first Scream over, it's really serious. There ain't a whole lot of comedy. You get comedy when it gets into the high school time and all that stuff starts happening. They start joking around with party and all that stuff, but there's a lot of terror and freaking scariness, creepiness to Scream, or especially in the beginning where they kill off Drew Barrymore, which is hilarious how they got her to play that beginning part there. That beginning part was terrifying. I remember back in the theaters when I watched Scream, I remember sitting there and I was probably only, I think maybe between the age of maybe 9, 10 to 12. I don't remember, but I remember sitting there watching it in that beginning. I remember crawling up in the seat going, oh my God, this is like the most scariest thing I've ever watched. And they call her up on the phone and they come after her in the beginning, and then they gut her and they show her hanging from that tree. I mean, the voice, hearing the Scream character, I can't remember his name, who does the voice of Scream. His voice is so haunting in that first Scream, in that first part right there. It is scary as heck when he's telling her, like, you know, what door is he at? The front door or the back door? You know, if you come outside, you know, it's just terrifying. And then when you first time you seen him run by, you see the Ghostface character run by in the house. I mean, the movie scared you real big time. The movie didn't really make me laugh that much. The movie more scared the heck out of you. That stuff can happen in real life. You don't know when it's some sick idiot, especially if you live out in the middle of nowhere where the cops will never make it in time. That stuff can happen in real life. And if you don't have a gun in your house, that's pretty scary stuff right there. You don't know. Someone call you up anytime and talking about how they possibly could be seeing you and you know, seeing what you're doing type thing. And the next thing you know, they're busting your house trying to kill you. So, I mean, movies really, really scary. But, like I said, overall, this matchup is going to Michael Myers. Halloween's got my vote, so that's it for me.
All right, everyone. So it looks like the winner somehow is Halloween. I don't personally get it. I don't see what the big appeal is, but there you go. The people have spoken. It's Halloween. Nostalgia wins again. So everyone else forgot to prepare something for who will survive between Ghostface and Michael Myers. So I'm going to go ahead and go, and I will determine who is the winner. So I personally think Ghostface would be the harder person to survive from. The main purpose is that Ghostface is someone you know and someone that knows your daily routine. So they are going to know what you're going to be doing, and they're going to know how to kill you. Michael Myers, he just stumbles upon you to kill you, and I feel like I can outrun him, get into my car because I always have my keys in my pocket, and just drive away. And also, he would not be able to get in my car because I don't think he knows how to pick a lock. And also, I always keep the keys on myself, and the car is always locked. So, again, like I said before, I feel like Ghostface is going to be the harder person to survive from. So, next up, we got our movie pitches. This week, we decided to do Paul Reubens, a.k.a. Pee Wee Herman, in a slasher film. So I'm going to go ahead and play what Brian has came up with, and then I'll go ahead and go. So here's Brian again.
Okay, so I have my movie pitch of this week here for you guys. My movie pitch, which stars Paul Reubens, who plays Pee Wee Herman. This movie here is called Murders on St. Charles. And basically what it's about is there's a bunch of nanny murders, kidnappings that are happening. A lady on the street who has a little daughter. And in this rich neighborhood, in a pretty richy suburbs, they have a group of nannies who go around babysitting all the rich people's kids. So I have this taking place around a really cold, snowy winter time. Maybe, I don't know, Chicago or New York City maybe. So one by one each week, a nanny comes up missing. And eventually the mother, she starts finding body parts laying through the neighborhood, through yards and stuff. And they start finding all the bodies of these nannies popping up. So it turns into this nanny murder going on. So I have scenes where the mother is getting really suspicious that it's the murderer of someone in the neighborhood. Is it the neighbor next door to the left? Is it the neighbor next door to the right? Or is it the one that's across from the street? The neighbor that likes to be quiet and stay to himself and likes to occasionally look out the blinds to be nosy? Or is it the neighbor who is kind and friendly, very outgoing and out there, just really friendly neighbor type person, always saying hi, how you doing, how was your day at work? So as the winter goes on, more nannies come up missing. Eventually her own nanny, which is played by Jennifer Lawrence, I was glad to throw her in there, she eventually comes up missing. So eventually she gets a little suspicious and is thinking that it's her neighbor that's a few houses down, kind of a young guy who just moved there from being overseas. But he's a very quiet, nerdy type guy. So she starts investigating him, finding out where he goes, where does he work, what is his hobbies. So eventually there's a twist at the end where she thinks it's not him. It's the neighbor down the street that's actually Paul Reubens. She's thinking this older guy, who she finds out is a sex offender and stuff, finds out on the internet. So finds out that he's got some mental problems. He's been in and out of a nursing home. You know, and he's in his 50s, so she starts thinking it's him. So when things go bad one day, where she's thinking that he's chopping up bodies in his garage, finds out that it's just him cutting up deers that he hunts. He goes out hunting for deers. So the twist is it's not him. And then she finds out one day that it's Mr. Paul Reubens, who's in her house with a knife. So she fights him. She eventually kills him. The end. So I thought that'd be a pretty interesting little story there. Kind of give you a little mystery, you know, of who could it be type. Who is this serial killer that's going around cutting people up, killing them. You know, trying to figure out which neighbor it is in the neighborhood. Like maybe one time she's looking at her blinds on a cold, chilly winter night. Snow's falling down. There's Christmas trees up across the street. There's a snowman, a couple snowmans in a couple yards. There's Christmas lights blinking off and on. The reflection blinking in her eyes while she's looking outside, wondering which next nanny is going to come up missing. And will they be alive? Will they be dead? As she watches outside, she notices a neighbor who is looking out the blinds at 3 in the morning. And that's where that older guy that I mentioned earlier comes into play. That's when she first starts getting suspicious and paranoid, thinking it's the older guy that's not quite there in his head. So, there you go. Here's my movie pitch. Murders on St. Charles. So, if you like it, give me a holler.
Okay, so my movie pitch is called The Black Mask Killer. Detective John O'Reilly walks his dog every morning, going the same route each time. This particular morning was different as John O'Reilly turns onto Oak Street. He glances at the bushes on the corner nearby. Upon approaching the bushes, he notices there is a hand sticking out. As he grows closer, he finds that a body of a woman is laying there, dead. Quickly, John reaches for his phone and calls in to the station. Seeing that he was the first on the scene, he will be the lead detective. The body is that of a 22-year-old female who shows signs of strangulation and postmortem removal of her left hand. John notes this down that this could possibly be a sign of a serial killer because the left hand could possibly be a trophy that has been taken. Nighttime falls on the city of Dryden. A young girl walks home from a friend's house. After 10 minutes have passed, she begins to have a feeling that someone is watching her. She looks over her shoulders. No one is there. She continues walking when all of a sudden she feels a sharp pain in her side. She yells out for help, but no words are leaving her lips. A hand is covering her mouth, silencing her screams. She finally is able to turn around and sees a tall person wearing nothing but black. They're wearing black pants, a black hoodie, and a black mask. All she can see are two dark eyes. This mysterious person takes his hand and brings them to her throat, causing this woman to draw her last and final breath. After she passes, the figure in the black removes her left hand and then says, "I got you." Scene cuts to John arriving to the crime scene. His partner Gary asks John what happened to his face. John tells him that there was an argument between him and his wife the night before. Usually when they get in an argument, she likes to turn her wedding ring towards her palm and slap him. And when she does this, she usually leaves a nasty cut across his face. 5 days have passed, and there are several other murders. But one morning, before John walks his dog in the morning, cop cars are surrounding his home. He's arrested for the murder of 4 women. John arrives to the station in a confused state, wondering why he has been arrested for this crime. He's the one leading the freaking investigation. As nighttime passes, John falls asleep. An hour or so passes, and John begins to stand. He moves towards another prisoner in his cell and begins to strangle him. After the unaware man is dead, John removes the man's left hand with what he can find in the cell, which isn't much. All of this is caught on camera, and John is sent to the mental institution for an exam. They end up finding out that due to the constant abuse from his wife, he has developed a split personality. He does not remember any of the acts that he's done. All that he knows is the stories that are told. And again, this movie is going to be called The Black Mask Killer. So, moving on to Robbie. So let's see what he got for us today.
Alright, this is Box Office Robbie, and this is my movie pitch trailer of the week. Here we go. The following preview has been approved for all audiences. If you say his name, don't say it twice. You better worry about the story of Damon Price. If you see him, don't blink, don't close your eyes. If you sin, he'll come, and you'll pay the price. Paul Reubens is the Piper. In theaters, January 16th.
All right, everyone. Before we get to the last little bit that we have, which is the movie quote of the week, I gotta come clean. What I said about Halloween is not, in fact, what I actually think about Halloween. This has all been a big prank that has lasted several weeks on Robbie here. I've been making him think that I hate his movies just to piss him off. I actually like The Lost Boys. I think it's a good movie. I like I said, I like the movie. I like the 80s-ness about it. There are some things I don't like about the movie, but there's always something that someone doesn't like about certain movies and stuff. But I like The Lost Boys. Don't get me wrong. I like The Evil Dead. Don't get me wrong. So I'm going to give you my actual thoughts and feelings on Halloween now. You guys thought you were done. So for story, I took off 0.25 for this. I think the story is really great. I think it's very simple. I like the whole idea of some guy just strolling into town and start murdering people, because sometimes, that actually does happen. We actually, have something going on in southern Ohio right now where some guy is murdering lots of women in southern Ohio and Chillicothe. Just, a couple weeks ago, there were reports that there was a body hanging on a fence, and people thought this was Halloween decorations, which would be a great script for a movie, even though that's tragic. And on behalf of, the Cinema Addicts, we, prayers go out to those families. But story-wise, one reason why I took off a little bit of points is because I felt like there should be a little bit more backstory with Michael Myers. I know he kills his sister, but I would like to see him in the mental institution and stuff, instead of him trying to steal the car from Dr. Loomis and his assistant or whoever the other person is. So I did take off a little bit for that. If I could, I would probably put off like 0.15 instead of 0.25, but I want to at least take off something, because I know everyone else is just throwing out 10s here and there, which if you guys love these movies, that's awesome. Give them a 10, but I'm going to try to be the one that takes off some points. For main acting, for Jamie Lee Curtis, I put 0.25 off for that. I thought she did a good job. This is one of her earlier films, and when you're upcoming actress, you don't have your acting chops completely there yet, but for the most part, I thought she did a great job. Like Robbie said, the script for the women's dialogue was written by a woman and who's grown up as a teenager, and I thought that it was pretty accurate for the time how her and her friends were acting. Now, supporting acting, I thought Donald Pleasance was great. Anything that you remember from the movie is a quote from him. I know Robbie thinks he should be a main actor, but again, like I said, with the whole Hannibal Lecter thing, I think he's a supporting actor. You don't see him on the screen nearly as much as you do everyone else, and just for that, Laurie's friends, I honestly do think they did kind of like a poor job when they went to go die and stuff, but lower budget movies, you can't get like these big time actresses that actually know how to do these things. But for the most part, I thought they did, an okay job, just up until when they get killed. When they're interacting with the kids they're babysitting and whoring around with the whole, why don't you go get me a beer? And I thought that was good, for the most part. For special effects, there wasn't like a ton of gore and blood in this movie, which is okay. You don't necessarily need that. I know the whole big thing with this movie is that they want to capture the creepiness of someone watching you, someone in the shadows, someone that's coming after you, which I think has more effect than the constant, like this versus Evil Dead. Like Evil Dead's nonstop gore, nastiness. This one leaves you with There's someone might be in the shadows. There might be someone in the closet. I know I was talking with Brian, and he says, after he watches this movie, he's always checking the, bathtub, make sure there's no one in there and stuff. Which I feel like a movie is successful when after you watch it, you're kind of like on the lookout and make sure there's nothing going on in the backgrounds. Nothing's out to spook you or anything, which is great. Score-wise, I took off 0 for this. The score is very memorable. It's very good. And it's really cool that someone that's not a composer, someone that's not a musician, actually came up with something as iconic as this. I can go around. If someone asks me, do the score from Halloween, I can do the do 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 do. I can do that, like that. I think the score for this was actually better than Scream. Just for the fact it is, it only has, several different notes, but it's that simplicity that makes it better. Sometimes less is more, and in Halloween's case, that is definitely true. Entertainment-wise, I did take 2.25 off for this. There are, some slower parts where, they're talking about, like, you didn't really tell him I like him, blah, blah, blah. I understand why they need that for the movie, but just those parts where she's on the telephone talking to her friend and stuff, I can give or take that. And rewatchability, this is a movie I'll probably watch every year on Halloween, October. So I took off 0.25 for that. It's not a movie like Scream where I can watch in March and December and be like, okay, I'll watch this then. But Halloween's going to be a movie I'll watch every October. That's a holiday-specific movie. So at the end of the day, I gave this movie 8.75. And everyone that listens to this should know, coming from me, that is an extremely high score. Because usually, I think the highest score I've given before is maybe like an 8.5. And that was for Interview with the Vampire, which is one of my top movies. So I'm going to turn this over to Brian, and he can do his movie quote of the week.
Hi there, this is Brian with your movie quote of the week. Have a pretty good one here. If you know this movie quote, post it on our Twitter, on Facebook, or YouTube, whichever you like to do. A lot of people out there likes to Twitter, so tweet away. So I'm going to go ahead and read off the movie quote. For one who has not lived even a single lifetime, you're a wise man, Van Helsing. So if you know this movie, go ahead and post the answer on one of our pages. This is a very, very big classic movie. Not many people has probably seen this movie because it came out long, long time ago. So if you know what it is, go ahead and post it. It also is the clue for next week's movie showdown. I also will post the answer on Thursday for the Throwback Thursday. So be looking out on our page to find out the answer.
All right, everyone. We will see you guys next week. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter. Facebook. Facebook.com/BZCinematics. Twitter.com/BZCinematics. Follow us. Like us. Subscribe to us on iTunes. Subscribe to us on YouTube. We'll see you guys next week. Peace out.